Welcome to the VoiceIt show, everyone. How's everyone doing? Yeah, we know it's been quite a while, but it always feels so pleasant to be back in the studio and with you guys watching us. And Anders is here. Everybody in the chat, thank you so much for taking your time to tune in this week on the VoiceIt show. We are so happy and welcome you all. Thank you so much for joining. And before we begin, uh, we hope you guys have subscribed to our channel. If you haven't yet, please go ahead and subscribe. In the right direction of the subscribe button. And
Yeah.
of course, a big shout out to and our loyals, patrons, Funky.
So a big shout out and thank you to Anders Lindholm, Shelly O'Neill, Adam Gorak, Chris Vicker, and of course Laurie D. Sandoval. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much for supporting the show. And without wasting a moment, we'd like to dive into our today's guest and the man of the hour. And we are so excited and honored. And today is a big day for the VoiceIt show as we are graced by the bass virtuoso who we also know as the legendary Joe Satriani and Steve Vai bassist, Mr. Stu Hamm. He is one of the most influential electric bassists of the past half century and has inspired a plethora of people to learn bass. With his unconventional playing, Mr. Hamm has given the bass techniques like two-handed tapping, slapping, popping, and harmonics a new recognition.
That's right. And coming from a musical family, he picked up early on with music by experimenting on various instruments, but bass is what he fell in love with. After high school, Stu attended Berklee College of Music, where he met Steve Vai and many other legendary musicians. And he also played bass on Steve Vai's debut album, Flexible, which was released in 1984. And through Steve, he met Joe Satriani, and the rest is history. Stu has performed and recorded with legendary musicians like Frank Gambale, Michael Schenker, Richie Kotzen, Vince Neil, and many more. And as one of today's ace bass players, Stu has 8 solo albums to his name, and he's garnered with award-winning recognition on a global scale. His latest album is called Art Spoke, which is the best of Stu songs collection from 2000 to 2018. And as an instructor, Mr. Hamm has released multiple best selling instructional courses taught at the Berklee School of Music and has served as the program director of bass at Musicians Institute at Hollywood.
And this is an overall insight into our today's guest. However, he's such an eminent musician whom, however much you praise or introduce, it will always be less. It is our utmost honor to have with us today. Let's welcome the legend himself, Mr. Stu Hamm.
Hey, how are you?
Hello.
Namaste. Good to meet you
Hi.
both.
Namaste to you, sir. How are you? Good
Well,
morning
I'm
to you,
good.
first of all.
I'm a little embarrassed by that intro, but also it makes me feel kind of good to hear so many nice things said about me. So, yeah, very kind
Aw.
of you. Thank you for the kind words. Truly.
thank, thank you so much for coming on the Voice It show today and gracing us and the show. And thank you so much. It's such an honor,
Of course.
and it feels really great that you're here with us today. Thank you so much, and thank you for your inspiring music. And let's talk about your childhood because I really want to get back into the history where it all began. So these are viewers commenting, so we'll put it up so
Yeah.
you can read their comments as well. And so what I want to ask is right in the beginning, how did the whole beginning of getting into music look like in childhood, and how was your childhood, and how
Uh,
did it? all begin?
My childhood was very nice. I grew up in the Midwest in a place called Illinois. The joke is it's the land of opportunity if you're a tractor, because there's a lot of and corn. But my father was a music professor. At the time, they called it ethnomusicology, which was studying music of different cultures. And then my mother was an opera singer and a voice teacher. And I had an older brother who was 6 years older than me, Bruce Hamm, who now plays Sarod, but he played guitar at the time. So I used to sneak into his record. Oh, look at my brother. Isn't he handsome?
Absolutely.
But he had all these weird records in his room. I would sneak in his room, and he had Pink Floyd and Cream and Sun Ra and his Solar Myth Orchestra and Miles Davis, Live Evil, and just, all these really weird records that I would listen to.
Wow.
And then my father was always interested in popular music. And so he wrote a number of books on Stephen Foster, who was one of the great Tin Pan Alley, music composers. And then he went on actually to start the academic study of popular music, right? So if you read a paper about Snoop Dogg, you can blame my father on that. And he started it's called the International Association for the Study of Popular Music. And he would go around the world and listen. He lived in Grahamstown, South Africa for a year. And he brought me this incredible record called The Indestructible Beat of Soweto that introduced me to Lee Smith Black Mambazo years before Paul Simon got to it, But also he was a poker playing friend of John Cage's, the avant-garde composer John Cage. So I grew up. The wonderful thing was that, I was singing in boys' choir. I was in opera. My father would take us to see Joan Collins or The Who or the Swingle Singers or, atonal quartets. Every form of music that we listened to. I mean, popular music wasn't snubbed or looked down on just because he was a classical composer. So I was really exposed to lots of different kinds of music, and being the youngest of three was very encouraged, to play music.
True. Wow. And you also had a band called the Flying Aces?
Oh man, you're gonna have to send me a copy of this whole show so I can show my brothers. Yes. Yes, that's funny. That's on the left there with the hat playing the ukulele was my middle brother Chris. That's David Newman, and that's me. Look at that grip. I whatever that drum grip is, I invented it. I think it's called the
wow.
Grip, So that was my first gig. I think I was in kindergarten. But I just remember seeing, like I said, my father taking us to see The Who, taking us to see John Cage concerts, a lot of the classical music. And I played piano from an early age. I played flute in the orchestra. And then one day I lived by a park and I heard this noise and there was a rock band setting up on the park. So I rode my bicycle down there and the bass player had one of those custom amps that has the chrome siding and the portholes in it. And he had a green B bass with a matching headstock and a white curly cord. And I just thought that was the coolest thing I'd seen.
Right.
So and in 1973, I got my first bass. Also in the Midwest, though, the marching band and jazz band were really competitive. In junior high school, we had A and B band. In high school, we had the 1, 2, and 3 band. Really competitive.
Right.
So I learned to play bass, basically playing upright bass, reading through changes in big band charts. And it was quite a while before I played like rock songs with a band. I spent my first few years, reading music and playing jazz. So.
Wow. So, my God, we're folks. We're talking of the era when Funky and I weren't even born.
Our parents were. I mean, my parents weren't born. So.
Whoa. I still feel like a 15-year-old boy trapped in the body of a 1-year-old person. So.
Oh, I love that.
That's the spirit of the Voice It show conveyed by Mr. Stu Hamm. So that's all.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
And
And then later on, after high school, Berkeley College happened.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. When I was 15, my father got a job at Dartmouth College, which is an Ivy League school up in New England, up in the mountains and in the snow. So I went from, in Illinois, a huge high school of thousands of people, to a small town on the Vermont-New Hampshire border that had like 60 people in my class. So the band program wasn't very good. So at that point, I started playing gigs at bars and restaurants, playing with Dartmouth frat bands, playing in top 40 bands, in ski resorts, and just working. I mean, I've been working on bass since 1975 or 76. Remember those years?
yeah,
Wow.
we do.
That 1975.
Wow.
Wow. My God. And then this happened.
God. Well, you guys did your homework. Well, so actually, the first music school that I applied to was the New England Conservatory, which had a thing called Third Stream. They had Miroslav Vicius, the upright bass player from Weather Report, teaching there. And it was a combination of classical music and very avant-garde jazz. And I auditioned and I didn't get in. So it's all for the best. It's all as it's planned to be. So I ended up going to Berkeley, where again I met Steve Vai and I met all these people, and it was just incredible being around so many great musicians. Where I lived in Vermont, I was like the only bass player, so I got all the gigs. And then I moved to Berkeley, and all of a sudden there's 10 other bass players on my floor that can play Teen Town. And I was like, what?
Wow.
So, but being around music 24 hours a day and practicing and being motivated and playing Latin music and rock music and swing music, it was absolutely wonderful.
My God. And you were surrounded with musicians like Jeff Berlin, and you even got Jeff to sign your Patrick Moraz album.
You know so much about me. That's incredible. Yes, it did. No, I mean, at that time, there were really so many wonderful musicians. Steve Smith, Tim Pedswater, Tommy Campbell. And there used to be a club in Kenmore Square called Pooh's Pub.
Pooh's Club.
Pooh's Pub. And it was it was a fusion club. And the funny thing was right behind the drums, there was a little area where you could stand. So whoever, if Steve Smith was playing drums, there would be 20 people standing right behind him watching him. But it was sort of the same people every night. Victor Bailey, who went on to replace Jocko on Weather Report, was there. I would play there. Bruce Arnold, Wayne Pedswater, who played fretless guitars. Just really, really, you know, it was a very experimental time in 1978. A lot of bass techniques were being invented. And then on November 8th, 1978, someone gave me a ticket to see a band called Weather Report. And I remembered, you know, the old stuff. I Sing the Body Electric with Miroslav, but for some reason, I'd never heard of Jocko. And I saw Jocko a number of times in my life, but that night he was just brilliant, and it changed my life like it changed every bass player's life. Just incredible.
Wow. My God.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I also had the chance to see him on the Joni Mitchell Tour twice, you know, which was the great Lyle Mays and Pat Metheny and Michael Brecker. It's just unbelievable.
Cool.
Yeah. And here's something that will get you thinking. Yeah.
That's young Steve Vai. When was the last time?
That's the lingerie club in Hollywood. I remember that photo.
Wow. And that's a Fender Strat Steve is playing. Was this the last time he played? Because he's always been an Ibanez guy.
I don't answer questions about guitar or guitar gear. Sorry, I pay no attention.
Cool. No problem. And then this is Joe and Ian again.
Joe's great. Yeah, man, I was so fortunate. I mean, I met Steve at a party. And at the time, Steve had a fantastic bass player in his band, a guy named Randy Coven, who passed not too long ago. He had a record called Funk Me Tender. And you talk about being intimidated. I think and he was a bit of a show off.
Wow. Yeah.
But I remember walking into a room and just being shredded, feeling like a little midget after I saw him play, but
wow.
Steve liked something about me, and it's so hard to believe that like not many people slapped on the bass back then. I mean, the bass is literally only 70 years old. And back in 1978, 79, I mean, here comes Jaco playing fretless. Here comes Jeff Berlin playing chords and harmonics,
Right.
People, Louis Johnson started slapping. And I was just in the right place at the right time. But you think about it, all these techniques that didn't exist when I was a kid, now people your age, if you learn bass, you're required to know all those things. You have to play some chords, you have to slap, you have to solo over bebop, you got to play with the pick. So there was so much change in the bass world, and I just tried to keep up.
Yeah. And so let's keep on talking about basses. So tell me, are there any major differences between a regular bass and a fretless one? Which one is easier to play?
Well, certainly, a fretted bass is easier to play because right, that's if you're going to play a D, it's right there, and you can put your finger anywhere between those frets, and it's going to sound like a D. Whereas, where's my fret list? I believe it's right here. Here it is. I love this bass.
Look at that bass. Wow.
So on a fretted bass, the frets are in the right position to stop the note, the right tune. But but here you have, if you push it a little sharp, but the great thing about fretless is that you can do so many sliding.
Yeah.
One of the hardest things about playing fretless is to not sound like Jaco. So I admire so many fretless bass players who have come up with their own sound on the fretless, like Mark Egan from Anthony's band, like Percy Jones from Brand X, who slided it. And actually, Gary Talent, the bass player for the Bruce Springsteen band, plays fretless, but you don't always have to slide it like a trombone. You can play it.
True.
And there are people, I mean, like my friend Steve Bailey plays a 6-string fretless bass and plays chords on it. Alain Caron can play chords in tune. It's a different aesthetic. So,
wow.
And
that's awesome.
Also, we know that you are a huge Marvel fan, right? Because you named a couple of your basses after Marvel characters. So can you tell us something about those?
Yeah, this is so embarrassing. Let me see do you know what Funko Pops are?
Not really.
It's gonna work here. Well, anyway.
Funko Pops. Yeah.
Cool.
Anyway, so here, all right, but I've got Doctor Strange.
There you go.
And I've got the Silver Surfer.
Wow.
And the most ridiculous thing that I have, I have to grab this and show it to you. It's just so stupid.
So sorry we are making you work so much.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there is the giant Galactus Funko Pop
Wow.
with the Silver Surfer as his herald. So
Aw.
I know.
Wow.
That's ridiculous. I do. You know, it's there's
Amazing.
so many serious things in my life, and so much stress to deal with that I enjoy every Wednesday. When the new comic books come out, I drive to my store and I talk to Paul and we see what's out and I buy them, and it's sort of a long, you know, the same characters I've been reading about since, you know, I was 12 years old. So it's just something. Just something.
Wow.
Yeah. Everybody's gonna
That
do
is-
something, you know, aside from
Absolutely.
all the serious things. Definitely.
Absolutely. But I mean, I love practicing. I mean, that's what I was telling my daughter when she was looking for a job, was like, you know, well, you better find something that you enjoy doing, because no matter what you do, it's going to take a lot of hard work. And you have to find something that you enjoy putting in the hard work to. So that's, there's no, you know, I teach a lot, and a lot of students don't last many more than 3 lessons, because the first lesson they sort of just want to talk, think it's cool, and the second lesson they go, how do you play the Peanuts theme, you know? And I say, well, you know, you're going to have to learn how to play scales and tapping, and the first 3 or 4 years might be hard, you know, but once they realize that they need practice, patience, and the passage of time, there's no magic dust to get around that, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
True. You know, that in fact was one of my questions, that, you know, our generation, in fact, has, you know, it's kind of, to say it's a YouTube age, and, you know, everything has become so much, you know, fast forward, that a lot of people, or a lot of youngsters like us, miss out on a lot of important steps in learning. And, you know, just like you mentioned, and many of us are, you know, into wanting the result before you put in the effort for it. So what are some of the, you know, common mistakes that, you know, that you notice while teaching your students, or, you know, when they ask you their questions, and what are the common things, and how do you advise we avoid those in order to become a good learner, and become a good musician?
You know, every student I have is different. And I, of course, have about 3 students, a young student named Jan Honef in the Netherlands. And I love him because I can just pick out music, you know, and we can just work on music, because this is how people shared music forever, you know. Tablature, I think the tablature works in that, as you know, there are 4 different ways on this bass to play the same G. Here, which of this down there? Here, 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 and here. It's the same note. It's just different positions. So if you're writing a song like right, you want to be playing that, you couldn't do. So I think tablature can be great as long as it's showing you the right fingering. But man, it's so difficult for me to find a common ground for people who are just learning music by dots telling them where to place their fingers. But hey, man, if it works for some people and they get joy out of it, then more power to them. You know.
True.
I have one student who plays in a lot of church bands, right, and worship music.
I see.
And the way they do it is they'll have the lyrics to the song, and then they'll have like G, C,
right,
and it's speaking a different language. So I think one of the wonderful things about going to a music school like Berklee is everyone's speaking the same language, and I can write out a chart like this. Chord chart. Now I can give this to basically anyone, and we can play my favorite things. Right.
True.
So I'm big on that. And some students get it.
Wow.
Some students don't. I've got a really good student in Kuwait. I've got a good student in Nashville, and yeah, it's a challenge.
True. And I've always wondered, is it truly, of course, learning staff notations is one thing. So, and, as you learn, it becomes easier for you to express through staff notations. But how hard is it to learn staff notations, because it's all dots and weird shapes for any newbie? So
it's like, at a certain point you didn't know how to read or write English or Sanskrit or Hindu or whatever, or Bosnian. I don't know if they have the same alphabet. It's the same thing. Start early, and it makes sense. I mean, it takes time, but there's just so much more knowledge that exists for music and bass players if you can learn written music.
Wow. Yes, that's good.
I have to be a champion of education. But I mean, having said that, I know some very famous, well-known bass players that don't read a note. There are a lot of especially like black musicians grow up in the church environment where they're sort of sitting on the side and they hear the song once, and then they're expected to just get up and play it.
Yeah.
I mean, guys like Dennis Chambers, I've never seen him play with a chart. He just has this incredible brain where he can hear it and play it.
Magic. True.
Magic and hard work.
Absolutely. No substitute for hard work.
Yeah.
So what are the... Okay, go ahead, Funky. You ask.
Yeah. So I'm gonna take you back a little. So if you were to talk to a younger version of yourself, what advice would you give yourself?
To be honest, I would have gotten sober much younger. I would have sought help and not taken so many drugs or drank so much alcohol earlier in my life. Can I say that? I don't know if you can edit it out, but I mean,
Sure.
That's the honest truth. That's certainly a real occupational hazard in our line of work. I don't know any other job. Like when you two are done, I don't think there's someone waiting to say, would you like a beer or a vodka, or I'll get you anything you want, right? So there's that. I think I would have started doing yoga seriously or earlier. And one thing that I always teach that I don't believe anyone teaches when you go to school is like stretching, because no football player, I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo or Lionel Messi is not just going to put on their uniform and then run out and start playing. They're going to warm up. They're going to warm up for an hour and they're going to cool down and then they're going to play. And it's the same thing for bass. Bass is a very physical instrument. I don't know if you saw, I just had this big surgery on my neck, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that you know, when you're younger and you're macho and you think I can lift this 8x10 cabinet all by myself, it's
True.
probably not a good idea, you know. So
True.
and you know, I've been to a few camps that I've sort of led where that's sort of the first thing I talk about is, you know, the right size strap, you know, how to warm up so that you can have
Right.
your playing free career. In fact, this year I was supposed to have my first bass wellness camp in Estonia, where it was going to
Wow.
be meditation and breathing every day. That's another thing is learning how to breathe when you play. So many people
True.
tense up, right? So,
Yeah.
but COVID happened. Hopefully, it's going to come back because Southern Estonia is going to be the EU cultural capital in 2025. So, if we can do it a few times before then, we can get the EU to kick in a lot of money. So,
Yeah.
well, I mean, you know, think about it. Why would you? You know, especially in double bass or how to carry it, how to hold it, how to warm up. It seems to be ridiculous that it's not, you know, taught more often. There's a great book by a bass player and friend of mine, a chiropractor called Randall Kurtz, and his book is called Injury Prevention and Pain Management for Bass Players. And it's
Wow.
just basic warm up exercises, and you know, it's like there's a thing in meditation called conscious relaxation, and you wouldn't think that you could concentrate on relaxing, but it's like anything else. The more you practice it, the less it takes your body to reach that state of relaxation.
True.
That's my Northern California hippie to be part of the program.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a little sneak peek into the bass wellness camp.
I will do it though,
Amazing.
and I hope to see more and more schools adapt. Just at
Right.
least, you know, your first semester, one course on the ergonomics and physics of holding a bass, and how to stretch
True.
so you don't play in pain.
True. True. Yes, sir. You mentioned when you were in Berkeley College, you guys were surrounded by music 24/7, and of course, music is to be. And I want to ask you is how much time would you practice in practicing then, you know, your bass or music basically, and how much time do you spend practicing now? And basically, would you like to break down your practice routine for us?
Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, once I heard Stanley Clark, I took a whole sheet of paper and I wrote, "I'm going to be the fastest bass player ever. I'm going to be the fastest bass player."
Wow.
You know, and then I saw Jocko and I ripped the frets out of my bass and grew my hair in dreadlocks and just thought I was joking. You know, I mean, there are certainly times when I practiced and practiced and practiced. I mean, because when you take a piece like, sorry, I keep unplugging this.
Oh, don't worry.
No problem.
The process, especially of tapping, I mean, to play a piece like the Moonlight Sonata, first of all, you've got to figure out where to put your fingers. About so on a tune. But you have to find out
Wow.
how to finger it. And that is certainly a case where tab would come in. because I wouldn't want to play it. It has to be up here.
Right.
And the thing with
Right.
that is also you have to be able to have control over it, where you can play with dynamics from going, you know.
True.
Right, the control, because to make music, especially solo bass, you need to use dynamics and
True.
shows the aesthetic of playing instrumental pieces like I do is not improvisation, it's interpretation, right? So you have to have
Wow.
command over it so that you can play it differently every time. So
Wow. That's such a beautiful insight. Wow. Really.
I'll tell you one thing that
Sure.
one thing that the tapping really helped me about. You know, I played bass for years and years and years. I mean, piano.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
until I saw Jocko, I never thought that bass could be a solo instrument. You know, when I learned how to play bass, it was.
Right.
Or right, whipping
The
post.
typical bass. Yeah.
But so I tried to adapt some of the piano pieces that I played on the bass. And if you play piano,
Right.
it's easy to see how scales work: whole step, half step, whole step, half
Right.
step. Right. So in
Right.
learning like in Prelude in C. Well, look at that. That's
Oh,
just,
yeah.
and then the next chord. Well, that's just a D minor with the C in the bass, and then, well, I know that shape. That's a G7 with a third of the bass, and then back to C.
Wow.
So it allowed me to sort of visualize
My
harmony
God.
in a much
Right.
different way.
Wow. Yeah. That was incredible. That's
Yeah.
truly historic for us, and such truly great. My God. Wow. Awesome. That's how things take shape, and that's amazing.
Well, I
And
mean,
it's
I
Yeah.
still work. I love to practice. You know, I'm going to be
yeah,
I'm going to be working on this today. I just recorded a new record that I need to mix. But the one thing
sure.
that I really enjoy about my career is that, especially in LA, you tend to get typecast. Like, are you a metal bass player? Are you a jazz bass player? Are you a funk bass player? I never thought it
Right.
would be a career detriment to be versatile. But I've been
Right.
able to play so many different kinds of music. You know, I played with this Mexican pop band called Caifanes. I'm going to be sitting in with them at a giant arena next week.
Wow.
Playing with Satriani, playing with, you know, David and David, some other pop bands. Every now and then I get to do a gig where I just get to read changes and swing, you know, and solo
Sure.
pop tunes. And I just love the
Yeah.
fact that I get to play so many different kinds of music.
Wow. Yes, absolutely. And you know, folks, by the way, Mr. Hamm has to leave real soon, so we're gonna cut short. But just with two more questions, one of which is on the album The Diary of Patrick Xavier. This is a fun story. You were on a journey of yourself, and then you found the diary. And would you like to tell us about that story?
Well, you know, again, I read all the time. And
Sure.
usually when I'm done with the book, I'll leave it like in the seat in front of me in an airplane in case someone's
Right.
up. And a lot of diaries, I mean, a lot of hotels, especially in Europe, have little lending libraries, right? Where you read a
True.
book, you pass along. So I was in this
Right.
little hotel in Italy, and I was done reading this book, and I put it back there, and I saw a book, and it was written in Sharpie. So I picked it up, and it turns out
Wow.
it was a diary, and whoever had written the diary had been to some of the same places that I'd been to, and had a similar story. His story was a little more tragic than mine, but so
Wow.
I had the idea to write songs about our similarities and differences in different places. But you know, when you play a solo bass piece, I'm trying to tell a story, right? And is that story happy? Is it sad? Is it melancholy? Is it frivolous? Is it mind-numbingly depressing? Right? You're trying to get
True.
these emotions across, but you know, no one ever asks me. They always say, "Hey, what kind of strings do you use?" They never say.
Yeah.
True.
They never say, "What's the song "This City" about?" And I say, "Well, this city
Right.
is, you know, Bernard Herrmann wrote all the music to the Alfred Hitchcock movies, and his music is mostly just one melody, not a lot of harmony." So
Right.
I said, well, I was in San Francisco at the time, and I said, I wonder what Alfred Hitchcock would write a song about San Francisco. So I tried to write a song in the style you know, of what Alfred Hitchcock would write about the Twin Peaks Tower in San Francisco. So
Right.
so I would suggest, if once everyone orders the record from stuhamm.com, plug,
Absolutely.
that you that you read the story, and then hopefully the music will make a little more sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That is amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
And
And
I'll tell you a joke though. You know what? No one understands me. But the reason I called it the Diary of Patrick Xavier was because what do you call an American who lives abroad? We call them an expat. Patrick Xavier. See, shh, don't tell anybody. So.
okay.
That was a story, but no, I'm really proud of that record.
Wow.
I have some.
Absolutely. It is.
There's some of the
amazing.
compositions are a little daring, but I'm super happy with it. My next record's a little more prog rock. I have got this wonderful Randy McStein singing on a few songs, and of course Alex Skolnick on guitar and Gergo Borlai on drums, and it's
Yeah.
be great. It's going to be different
And exciting. That's amazing. And we can't wait to hear it. And by the way, do you still write songs on piano?
You know, I have a keyboard.
Okay.
I mostly just adding pads or sounds. Like if I think I want to add a marimba to a song, I'll play fake marimba. And if a song just requires like mellotron strings, I can do that. But you know the secret to being a good band leader or to doing a good record is to hire really good musicians and let them do what they want. Like I know a guy named Steve Fecketti, Steve Ferlazzo. He's a keyboard player.
Yeah.
He'd come up with better keyboard parts than I can. Gergo Borlai.
Wow.
Here's another funny thing is that I never send the drummer a demo with a drum loop or a fake drum part because they can never get that out of their head that they think that's what you want. So I send them just a click track, right? So because I want to get the best out of every musician. I want them to bring what they have to the table to be something new, exciting, and unexpected.
True. Creative liberty.
Musical freedom.
Musical freedom, absolutely. That is fantastic. And well, Gosh, we have so many questions and even personal ones, not too personal, but since you have to leave right now, we are going to cut this short. And would you like to join us in the future for another part two? Just in
Absolutely.
case.
You can ask me two more personal questions, and then I have to bounce. So bring them on.
Awesome,
Well, I have
cool.
one more question, so
Okay,
it's
funky.
not
So
that
your question and
personal,
my
but
question.
okay.
But okay,
Okay.
you can go ahead
So,
ask.
sure. So, can you give some advice regarding music, and regarding life to all the people uh, who are watching right now and who support you, your friends?
Um, if you have a serious drug or alcohol problem, get help. That would be my number one thing. The second thing would be that in this whole era of YouTube, obviously people can watch on YouTube and learn, but they're just sort of imitating, right?
True.
There's absolutely
Right.
nothing like playing with a real band. If the drummer
Mhm.
speeds up, as a bass player, you can learn to hold them back. If the singer comes in at the wrong time, you have to learn to go back to the verse and follow them. And that's also the fun, is just making music with other people. So even when I
Mm-hmm.
was going to Berkeley and playing with Steve Vai, I was playing in wedding bands, the tuxedo on.
Yeah.
I was working,
Right.
making money
Yeah.
playing music. So don't limit yourself. Don't say, well, I only play black metal. I'm not going to join that melodic metal band. You're
Right.
limiting yourself. I would suggest that you find any kind of band, singer, songwriter, polka band, traditional Croatian music,
Sure.
Bollywood soundtrack music, and just take any chance, any opportunity that you can get to get together and play with live musicians, because you're going to learn something. You're going to meet people that book gigs, that are doing gigs for a living. You're going to enter that society of working musicians.
True.
So,
Wow.
and if you are going
Wise
to
words. Yeah.
if you are going to record videos in your bedroom, make your bed and clean your room so we don't see your socks.
Oh, that's the best
That's
advice ever.
that's the best ending. Also, I'm not going to ask my question now. let's let's end this episode on that note. That's a brilliant thing. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Mr. Ham. And it has been such a pleasure and honor to talk to you and to know things about you. And well, we are truly, truly, truly grateful to you that you gave us your time, and we wish you all the best for the project, for the ongoing project and your endeavors. And obviously, thank you so much for inspiring generations
Thank you
and
so much.
inspiring us.
I'll send you that email of who once we get off here.
Sure,
Oh,
sure,
thank you.
absolutely. And before you go, for the folks who are watching, please check out Mr. Ham on his socials,
That's me.
Facebook and Twitter at the red
Yeah,
Stu Ham Bass.
you can order
Yep,
CDs,
on Insta.
signed CDs, and instructional DVDs from
Yes,
StuHamm.com. So bring it on.
everything is on the website, and all these links are in the description of this video. So go ahead and just click. And thank you so much for tuning in this week. And we'll see you next time with another guest and another hero of ours.
All
So
right.
thank you so
Yeah.
much. And Mr. Ham, thank you so much for
Thank
giving
you.
us your time.
Have a
We are
wonderful,
eternally
wonderful day and
grateful.
a wonderful weekend. It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much.
All
And
right.
everyone, take care. Peace out and
Ciao
Peace.
for now.
ciao for now.
Ciao.